Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Scene Saturdays. I'm DeAndre Hardy, founder and creator of the Scene Society, where we amplify the experiences of women living with chronic invisible illnesses to create capacity for authentic and inclusive leadership. And in the month of May, we are celebrating and bringing awareness to lupus awareness to increase research and to make sure that we are acknowledging the people who are surviving and thriving with lupus, and also making sure that we educate people about what lupus is and how they can support the cause. I am also, for the rest of this year, focusing conversations on women who have built their own tables to empower others and build inclusivity. And when it comes to lupus advocacy, when it comes to building your own table to empower and bring inclusivity to others, none other than the Keva Brooks Napper, who came to mind to be able to interview. So, Keva, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it has been a journey with us finally meeting via Zoom face to face, but supporting each other online. And I love the work that you're doing. And so, please tell everyone who's watching who you are and what you do, and whatever parts of your story you would like to share, and we'll get into it.
Wow, we're just gonna jump right in, huh?
We are.
Well, as you said, I am Keva Brooks Napper. I am the founder and executive director of Beautiful Butterflies Incorporated, which is a nonprofit lupus foundation in the Triad area in North Carolina. And I am also a lupus thriver, a 21-year lupus thriver. I was diagnosed in 2003 with lupus, and I'll just start by telling my story if that's okay. Okay, so in 2003, I had gotten really sick. I had flu-like symptoms, but I wasn't coughing, sneezing, or anything like that. I had a fever of about 102, 103 that just would not break. And I had it for about 5 days straight. And I was very, very, very lethargic. I felt like I had been run over by an 18-wheeler backwards and forwards. I just literally could not move. And then also I noticed in the back of my hair, and at that time my hair was super long. I got it in a ball right now. But at that time my hair was super long, and in the back of my head, I had a spot, and it was like about the size of a dime, and it was just raw. It wasn't shedding, wasn't falling out. It was completely raw, just like my hand. And I touched it and I'm like, what is going on? Because it happened all of a sudden. And I knew that that was a problem because I was and still am the person who gets her hair done weekly. So if my hair was coming out or anything like that, I would have known, my beautician would have known, but that wasn't something that was there prior to. So for me to have a bald spot was alarming. And then I had all these other symptoms, but I never thought lupus. I didn't know what to think except I didn't feel good. And so only time I got out of the bed was to go to the restroom, take a shower, maybe get something to eat, but then I got right back in the bed. And this was for 5 days straight. So eventually, I kept watching the spot, and it grew from a dime to a nickel, and then from a nickel to a quarter. And it was raw, no hair follicles whatsoever, just raw and red. And eventually I went to the doctor, and the doctor ran tests, but they never told me that they were testing me for lupus. Never. They did blood work and all of these other things and just sent me home and said, we'll give you a call. Well, a couple of days later, they did call me and they said, you tested positive for lupus. Sir, I didn't know you were testing me for lupus. Furthermore, what is lupus? I don't know anything about it. Um, and immediately when I started to look on Google, which was the wrong thing for me to do, when I started looking
We're
on
all guilty
Google,
of it, though. We're all guilty.
guilty, like first place we're gonna go. But when I started looking on Google, I was like, am I about to die? Because the first thing I knew was there was no cure. And at that time, there wasn't a real medicine to kind of help to deal with it, to, to just kind of, it just kind of maintained, but there wasn't anything really out there. And so I knew one person who had it, my dad's admin, but I never really saw her struggle, never really saw, so it didn't hit me, oh, such and such has it. She can give me information, she can help me, walk me along this journey. Like it didn't click. And so I just felt like I don't know anybody, I don't know any information. Like I have this disease now that doesn't have a cure. What does that look like? I'm young. This is I I don't know. So
Mhm.
eventually I shut down. I didn't talk about it. I started taking the medicine and just living life as if nothing had happened whatsoever. It was like a turtle just climbed into a turtle shell and was in my own world and didn't really deal with it. That was in 2003. And just to give you an idea of my numbers, one of the things that, because there is no single test for lupus, you can't just take one test to be diagnosed. That's not how lupus works. There is a panel of tests that you go through, and it can be up to 11 things. And I checked almost all of them. But my ANA, which is your antibodies, okay,
Mhm.
my ANA was so high that they were just like, oh, yeah, definitely autoimmune. But at that time, the marker, the range was like between 0 and 80 was normal. My antibodies came back at 1,280.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I was super, super, super high. And that was a huge red flag that I definitely had something going on in my immune system. So once again, didn't talk about it, didn't tell family, didn't tell friends, just kept doing what I was doing. And that was in 2003. In June of 2004, sitting in church, I started having grand mal seizures, which is the strongest type of seizure you can have. Never had a seizure before, didn't have histories of seizures. So this was definitely the unknown, the unfamiliar, and out of the norm for me and for my family. So I started having a grand mal seizure and was in and out of consciousness. And at the time, they called 911, of course. They came and I was rushed to the hospital. And before the day was over, I had about 4 to 5 grand mal seizures. And they had gotten so strong, and I was damaging my body and my brain so much because of the strength of the grand mal seizures that they told my family. The first time they told my family, they said, we put so much medicine in her that she can't have another seizure. They put the bed rails down on the side of the bed and they said, we have to go meet because we don't know what's going on. So we have to figure out what's going on with her. But we put medicine inside of her. She won't break through. She can't have another seizure. You guys just stay in here with her till we get back. Well, not too long after they left, guess what happened? I broke through the medicine and started having another seizure.
Oh my
And
God.
this time it was so hard and so damaging that I almost threw myself off of the bed in the hospital. So my father had to grab this arm, my brother grabbed this arm, and my mother went running down the hospital to get the doctors to come in because it was so strong. And so this time when they came, they wheeled me off to ICU and put me in a medically induced coma. So this time
Mm.
I didn't wake up. I didn't break through. But it was so much on my brain, so much on my body, so much on my muscles that I had to be put in a coma to keep everything calm because it was damaging. I was
Mhm.
damaging myself, not on purpose, but because of what was happening, I was damaging myself. So I had to be put in a coma until they could get to the root of the problem. And eventually, after they did all the testing and I came to, what they found out was that I had 2 blood clots on my frontal lumbar. So on the front of my brain, I had 2 blood clots that caused me to have a stroke, which because the blood wasn't flowing through my brain, it caused me to have the seizures. And I was 27 at the time.
Wow.
And so I had a stroke at 27. And what they also realized was that part of what caused that was protein S deficiency. And that simply means I can't have a lot of protein K. I can't eat too many greens because it makes my blood too thick.
Mm.
Now, growing up, what are we always told? You better have
Eat
some
your
green on your
vegetables.
plate. Right.
Yes.
But for me, I have to monitor that. Now, I can eat greens. It's not that I can't, but I have to monitor how much I eat because it'll make my blood too thick and it'll cause me to have blood clots. And nobody knew that. Who knew that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that caused me to have a stroke at 27 years old. And so now I have to take blood thinners. And I've been taking blood thinners since 2004. What is a common thing? It's at least 50%, I do know that, of people who deal with one autoimmune disease often deal with the secondary. So my
Mm.
primary is lupus, my secondary is protein S deficiency, and both, neither have a cure. I just say that I'm a rare catch, a rare breed, a rare specimen altogether. Everything about me is rare. Nobody else like me. And
Right.
I just maximize on that, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, my question, I've never heard of protein S deficiency, so thank you for like bringing that up. And then your statistic about if you have one autoimmune, you have another, because I think about me with having Crohn's disease and then developing the hidradenitis suppurativa in my skin, was my secondary. So that I fit right into that 50% piece, even though I don't want to, but that is true for me as well. And so that's just very interesting for you to share. And like your story, just up until now, I'm like on the edge of my seat because that is just the fact that you're still here is a miracle and a blessing. And so I'm so glad you're still here. And I'm glad that you're telling your story to bring this type of awareness. So I wanted to say that, but go ahead.
I'm glad to be here to see you and talk to you as well.
Yeah.
Um, and that, even in that though, I will say, and I do share this, some people can handle it, some can't, but it's my truth, my story. But I will say that on the when they were wheeling me into somebody's ringing the door. When they were wheeling me into ICU, I remember there was a lot I don't remember because I was unconscious. But there are certain things I definitely remember. But as they were wheeling me into ICU, I remember the nurse, the head nurse, and it was a Caucasian male named Brandon. And he had blonde tips, spiked hair, blonde tips. And he was like, Miss Snapper, I'm the head nurse. Take real good care of you in ICU. And he was like, my name is Brandon. I'm gonna make sure you're good. And I mean, going fast, going down the
Mhm.
hall, whisking me through the hospital. And shortly after he said his name, I had an out of body experience. I saw myself, and then I started having a seizure, and I was unconscious after that. The next time that I came to was when I woke up from the coma. And I remember that because I was looking at myself, like shaking, and then that was that. That was it.
Mhm.
Um, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. But when I came out of the hospital, though, I can say by the grace of God, I was not on a walker. I was not in a wheelchair. I didn't have any facial residual from the strokes. I did not have to do any rehab or therapy. I knew who I was. I could talk fine. I didn't have any memory loss, anything like that. God was definitely gracious to me in that situation. And I'm extremely grateful for that.
Yes.
Um, and that was just one situation. I have definitely been through a lot. I've definitely experienced a multitude of lupus symptoms. I know people who have been through way worse than me. But I have experienced, I can literally touch on a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
That was one stroke. I've had two. And the second one, though, was in 2015, and I went numb on my right side. Most of the time, they tell you pay attention to symptoms on the left side. It was my right. I had a headache for 5 days. And by the fifth day, I said, I'm gonna go to the doctor. Maybe my blood levels are off. I went to one doctor, they pricked my finger to check my blood levels, and I was right on the line. But because of the symptoms, and I was at a hospital when I did this, they were like, you
Mhm.
need to go to the ER because your symptoms are not good. But I did not want
Mhm.
to go to that hospital's ER. So, not having feeling in my right side, I still got in my car and drove. And yes, I did.
The things that we do, like, when you look back, you're like, "How did I even do that?"
I
So,
mean, I had a whole left hand. I was okay.
I know.
So I got in the car and I drove to another kind of like an in-between. It's bigger than the urgent care, but not a full-fledged hospital. I drove
Mhm.
to that, and they checked me out and ran some tests, and immediately they said, something's wrong, but we don't have everything here that we think you need, but we're calling an ambulance and we're gonna have a team waiting for you. And I was like, what? And so they put me on an ambulance, sent me to a third hospital. And when I got to that third hospital, it was an entire team waiting for me as soon as the door opened. And I was like, what
Mhm.
is going on? And they
Mhm.
wheeled me in immediately, took me in for a CT scan, MRI, the whole nine, and then took me in this room. And a neurologist came in and he said, so you had a blood clot on your brain that burst. And I was like, what? Now I was in the midst of, it was my mom's birthday and we were getting ready to do a birthday dinner party. I had planned everything. I'm like, okay, go pick this up, go pick this up. And I'm still making phone calls at the hospital. Like, just let me get checked out. I'll be there shortly. No. So he said my image looked like bird splatter on a windshield. That's how he described my brain. Bird
Wow.
splatter on a windshield. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, you're not going home. You're gonna get checked in. You're not going home. And I cried. I was so mad. I was mad.
And
I
we do
cried.
it to ourselves because there are times where I'm like, I know I'm gonna be here a while. Like I know it's at least 3 days, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I can beat it. They're gonna let me out. They're gonna let me. And it's like, if we could just accept that we're gonna be in the hospital, it would make it easier. But I understand you were planning your mom's party, still doing those calls, and I'm here like, no, ma'am. But if it was me, I would have been trying to do the same thing. So, especially earlier times in my life. So I'm there. I'm there.
I was mad. And so I got in, checked in the hospital, and still didn't realize the severity of what I was dealing with until the next morning. The
Mm.
next morning, right before the stroke team came in, um, I got up to brush my teeth and comb my hair. And I had a part down the middle and my hair was hanging. Child, I tried to comb my hair and I couldn't do it. I had a
Mm.
big black wide tooth comb in my hand, and my mother was standing beside me. And I was like, Mom, comb my hair. And I took that comb and went all the way over here. I could not, my brain couldn't connect to tell me to comb. I couldn't find it. So you know how sometimes you do the test where I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And then, so when I couldn't comb my hair, I was like, what's going on? And then I was like, let me try to brush my teeth. I had the toothpaste on the toothbrush and couldn't put it in my mouth. I had the toothbrush over here because my brain was damaged, and the way everything was going, my brain wasn't giving the right signals. I couldn't brush my teeth, couldn't comb my hair, couldn't wash myself, couldn't dress myself, couldn't walk by myself, couldn't stand up straight by myself. This time I had to have help. So they put a belt around me like a dog. And anytime I would lean, they would snatch me back because it took me, even once I got out of the hospital and went to rehab, in rehab, it took me a full minute to take 10 steps, a whole minute to
Mm.
take 10 simple steps. That's a
Wow.
long time.
Mhm.
but I couldn't turn quick. I couldn't turn my head quick because if I did, I would lose my balance and fall over.
Mhm.
So I had to do PT and OT. They sent me home from the hospital with a walker, and I said, I am not using that. I said, take it off my bill because I'm not going to use it. I said, I will hold on to everything else around me, but I will not walk with a walker. I refuse. And I didn't. I don't care what I had to grab. I did not use a walker, but I had to, I would hold on to the walls to kind of keep a balance. Couldn't do steps. So I had to stay with my parents because at my house, my bedroom is upstairs. So
Mhm.
they had a bedroom on the main floor, so I could just, do that. But I had life changed. Life
Mhm.
changed. Having to have somebody help you shower, help you
Mhm.
brush, all of those things. And
Mhm.
it was extremely difficult. It was extreme. Just when people say, I thank God for the activity of my limbs, it has a different meaning when you really know what it means to not have use of the activity of your limbs. I went through that season where I could not lift my arm up to put a cup in the cabinet. That was part of rehab for me, was just picking up a cup, putting it in the cabinet. They had a whole
Mm.
kitchen set up in rehab. I would pick up a cup, put it in the cabinet, take it down, put it back down, have to turn my head to do it just so I could balance. I would have a little thing where I would pick up cubes and cross it over. I couldn't do any of that. I couldn't do any of it for months. For
Wow.
months. Let
And
alone
so I'm
drive.
right. And so how did you get from that to like where you are today? What was that? Like we're gonna get into what lupus is and all of that, but like what this story, your story is so powerful. And it's like we see you today. And how did you get from there to where you are now? Like what did that entail?
A lot of prayer.
Mhm.
And a lot of determination and hard work. I think for me, like if they told me one part of my therapy would be 6 months, right? A minimum of 6 months just to graduate out, but I still had to do rehab at home. But I was like, I'm not doing all of this 6 months. I'm gonna be done shorter than that. So lo and behold, 4 months I was getting on a plane. I was done. I was getting on a plane like I'm traveling. I'm not, no, y'all not gonna hold me back. And so I
Mhm.
I fought hard. And I'm about to cry, but I fought hard to get to that place. It
Mhm.
was, as I say, and as I told you earlier, it is completely the battlefield of the mind. The first
Mhm.
fight is always in the mind. It's not physical, it's your thought pattern. How do you think? What do you think? So for me, every morning getting up, I had to speak positive to myself and about myself. I could not let my situation dictate who I am, what I do, and how I live. So for me,
Mhm.
I was fighting in my mind first. I was saying what my day was going to be like. I was speaking to my body what I wanted it to do. And it didn't always happen, but I spoke it until it did. It's
Mhm.
not easy. And there it's not something that's perfect. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It is a true fight and it doesn't stop just because lupus is something that blindsides you. You can't
Mhm.
dictate how you're going to feel minute to minute, hour to hour, day by day. I can be great today and tomorrow wake up and not be able to move. I haven't been in that position in a very, very, very long time. However, I have been in that position where I had to crawl on the floor and pull myself up on the toilet just to use the bathroom. I
Oh
have
my
been in
God.
that position. However,
Mhm.
that is not where I am now. And a lot of that is because one, God's grace, God's favor, God's mercy. Two, my mindset. I fight for me. Three, I have a very strong support system. Very
Mhm.
strong. It is important to keep people around you who will hold your arms up when you can't. I'm tired some days. I don't feel like fighting. I don't feel like being positive. I don't feel like saying, I can get through this. I can do this. I'm going to make it. Some days I just want to lay there. Some days I don't want to move. Some days I don't want to fight. So I need people around me who will help me do it, who will
Mhm.
remind me who I am, whose I.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have positive feedback in my ear. Even if I don't do it in that moment, it's still being poured into my spirit. I have to
Yes.
have that. So all of those things together make a perfect equation for me to understand that I have to choose life. I have to
Mm-hmm.
choose to live. I have to choose joy. That's a choice. It's a
Mm-hmm.
choice every day. So what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to live? Are you going to choose to fight? Are you going to choose to have joy? Are you going to choose to overcome? What are you choosing? I'm choosing to live.
Mm-hmm. Do
That's it.
you, and part of these conversations and why I have them is because we often read these words of these illnesses, right? So we see lupus, we see Crohn's, we see the Lupus Foundation, the Crohn's Foundation, this foundation. And I think it's hard to humanize when we see research and commercials. A lot of times, until you have a conversation like this or watch a conversation like this, we try to it's not humanizing to what it really is like every day living with this. And then people see you and you're beautiful, you're successful, and they're like, oh, well, lupus can't be that bad because look at Kiva. And they don't know this
Mm-mm,
story.
mm-mm,
And so, what I appreciate about you sharing this is really bringing that humanity and that vulnerability to
mhm,
put a face with what this is. And I
mhm.
know there's like a lot of misconceptions about lupus and what it is. And so, can you describe or define like what lupus is? And then how does it affect us? How does it affect Black women, women of color in our communities?
Lupus is a beast. It's often called the great imitator because it looks like so many other diseases. So people
Mhm.
are often misdiagnosed because doctors think it's something else. And they don't know, always that this symptom and that symptom can sometimes overlap. And it can take years before people are diagnosed with lupus.
Mhm.
For me, some of the symptoms are common. So, skin rashes, hair
Mhm.
loss, fatigue, but how many of us are tired? But there's a difference between tired and fatigue. Chronic fatigue is not tired. So I will
Listen.
say one thing that ticks me off is people who deal with chronic fatigue, when we say we're tired, that is not the same as somebody who says, I'm tired because you went to bed late. Not, that's not apples for apples at all.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes, friends will kind of be like, girl, I'm tired too. I went to bed late and not, sweetheart, we are not the same. Okay.
Yeah, like my body is fighting itself. It is not like one time I was so chronically tired, my eyelashes hurt. Like it literally hurt for me to open my eyes.
Yes,
And so it's not the same.
it's
It's
not
not
the
the
same.
same.
And you
Mhm.
can't, sometimes you can't control like your body wanting to go to sleep and falling asleep or just being very groggy. Like you can't control things like that. But
Mhm.
chronic fatigue and just being tired, not the same.
Mhm.
Um, so chronic fatigue is a symptom, sensitivity to sunlight. So
Mm.
the sun can cause flare-ups. So, I know I'm very light skinned and my friends like to make jokes. And they'll say, you need to get you a tan. Honey, that could have me in the hospital because the
Mhm.
sun can cause a flare up. So I can get rashes and breakout and all of these other things. So
Mhm.
while I do travel, go out, hang out, island, sun, all of that, I have on sunscreen, I wear hats and proper clothing, but still, enjoy and look cute at the same time.
Mhm.
So, but the sun is a trigger, and you can get, like I said, the rashes, the hair loss. You can get, I'm cold all the time, so my fingertips might be purple or blue.
Mm.
Those are also signs. Joint pain, joint pain is a major,
Mhm.
major, major one, joint pain. So,
Mhm.
people ask about the butterfly rash. It doesn't just have to be the butterfly rash, it can be rashes, just a rash, period.
Got you. Okay.
Dealing with swelling, um, sometimes just inflammation can cause swelling. So just inflammation, period, can be another symptom. So
Mm-hmm.
those are just some common symptoms that we kind of deal with. The photosensitivity is a big one. All of those, the hair loss, the fatigue, the rashes. Those are the
Yeah.
those are major ones that kind of stand out. But with that, how it affects Black women, actually, lupus affects women 90%. Of the
Wow.
people who are diagnosed are women. It is 2 to 3 times more likely to be a minority woman, 3 times more likely to be an African American woman. 1 in 250 African American women will be diagnosed. So those numbers are interesting. A lot of people don't realize that. And the age group is 15 to 44, which is the average age of the diagnosis, which is childbearing years. And so
Mm.
had I really known what I was dealing with earlier on, I probably would have done some things differently. So I believe I had symptoms back when I was in high school. Not I believe, I know I did. I had symptoms when I was in high school. I was a cheerleader in high school and college, and
Mm-hmm.
I had problems with my knees, but they just kept telling me it was tendonitis. And all along, it was lupus. And nobody diagnosed me, nobody knew it. And so I believe had I known then, I probably would have changed my approach to having children. I would have been a little more aggressive in my younger years. I did lose a baby 6 months after my first stroke.
Oh,
And
I'm
that was,
sorry.
well, it ended up as difficult as it was also a blessing just because my body had gone through so much from the stroke with the seizures. It takes the brain 2 years to heal from a bruise. And so I had gone through so much bruising that my body was not healed, definitely not in a place to house a life. And the doctor I had at the time was extremely cruel, no bedside manners whatsoever. And he told me, okay, you're pregnant, but he said, if you attempt to go full term, he said, either you will, just like this, either you will die, the baby will die, or you both will die. So your option is to terminate. And I was like, what? Like, he was just so, and I was still mentally healing from the stroke. This was in the same year. I was not in a mental, physical, or spiritual place to handle that whatsoever. And I didn't. I just simply told God, I said, God, I cannot handle this. So you have to, because I can't. And so
Mm-hmm.
um about after I prayed that, about a week and a half later, I had a miscarriage. And it was difficult and painful, but I believe at that time it was the only option. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because anything else would have been too risky. And I didn't want to go the route that my doctor at that time wanted me to go. I was not about to kill my baby. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and after that, just my body went through a lot of different things, and I never tried to get pregnant again. So,
Yeah.
I'm not a person who lives off of regrets. I think
Mm-hmm.
everything has a lesson in it. But I will say, if I ever have a regret in life, it is not having children. And that is super, super, super sensitive for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk in depth about that much, but that is something that is dear to my heart, that is sensitive. And I do think it comes with me having lupus because of the blood clots, because of the ANA. I've met with all kinds of specialists and everything, and it is extremely risky for
Mm-hmm.
me. Can I get pregnant? Yes. Can I carry? Yes. But because of the blood clots, will I carry full term? I don't know. And so they were just always like, you need to get a surrogate, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so at this point, though, like I'll be 50 next year. So at this point, you know.
Yeah. Well, 49 wear, 50 wear, right?
I'm just kidding.
But thank you for, I know that that is very personal. So thank you for being willing to talk about that on this platform because I
Mhm.
know it's a reality that a lot of women experience with a lot of different autoimmune illnesses. And
Yes.
so the lupus survivors or lupus caretakers who end up watching this
Mhm.
will be able to, unfortunately, some of them may be able to identify with that. So you've helped break some stigma right here. And so I appreciate you trusting me and the audience with that part of the story.
Yes.
What are, because there are some things that are major red flags, like one that they didn't tell you they were testing you for lupus,
Right.
going misdiagnosed for so long. So, what are some questions people could ask if they suspect that they may have lupus and people are misdiagnosing them? Like, what is like one of the main questions someone should ask to be able to make sure they're getting that test for the markers?
So I don't I have had people ask me that. They'll say, I've had people send me pictures of rashes and they'll say, do you think this is
You cannot
lupus?
diagnose.
And I'm like, first and foremost, I am not a medical provider. You need to go see your own. Don't have anybody trying to sue me. Um, but I always tell people kind of watch yourself, take notes, keep a journal by your bed and take notes. Nobody knows your body like you. So pay
Hmm.
attention to your body and know what's going on because the doctor's job is to um, not just tell you things, but we need to help them help us. So if you
Hmm.
write notes and go in and give them, an idea of what's going on, then they can kind of come back a little better with some type of knowledge. Everything is not off Google. You need to say, hey, this is what's going on with me. It's been happening this many weeks. I've had rashes in this place. I've lost hair in this place. I'm having joint pains. And it's happening when the sun comes out or the sun is hitting me when I drive. All of these things. Sun exposure is a big one. And it could be a
Hmm.
short walk. It doesn't have to be a hot, sunny day. Sometimes the shortest distance has the most impact. So
Hmm.
taking notes and paying attention and being able to provide them with information is a big thing. But if you're seeing things on a consistent basis and you've written it down and have kind of a timeline of what's what, then take it to your medical provider and say, hey, I would like a blood workup done to make sure that I don't have any type of autoimmune disease. And if you want to
Hmm.
specify lupus, that's fine. But I would rule out autoimmune disease, period, not just one. When they do the workup, they can check for several.
That's good. Thank you, because a lot of people may be experiencing things and don't know. And if they're coming and just talking about it, and then it's not happening in that moment you have the appointment, sometimes people make you feel like, oh, you're making this up, or it's just stress. And so thank you for sharing those like tangible pieces of what you can do to keep track and prompt people to give you a test for autoimmune. So tell me about, I know you're a community advocate, you're in the community, you have your foundation, you have your other work that you're doing, you're an author, like all around celebrity. So I think that I see your stuff and I'm like, she has a book, she has this, you have that. So you are really doing it. But tell us about your Lupus Foundation and where we can find you, who it's for, and how people can connect with you. And any events you have coming up you'd love to highlight.
Yes, ma'am. So, Beautiful Butterflies Incorporated. You can find us. Our website is www.mybeautifulbutterflies, and that's plural.com. You can find us on all social media platforms. Our Instagram is my_BBI. On Facebook, we are Beautiful Butterflies. Make sure that it is the Lupus Foundation in North Carolina because there are a couple of different pages out there. And we support invisible illness. We support lupus thrivers, family members, caregivers, co-workers, friends, associates, everybody. So if they want to come, they want to join an event, they want to join support group, it doesn't matter. We want everybody in the community to come join in and be educated and help inspire those thrivers and support those who are challenged by any type of invisible illness, not just lupus, but all invisible illnesses. So we're connected to and we want to support all those in the invisible illness community. And our next event is on May 23rd at 6 p.m. at Southeast High School. It is Hoops for Lupus. So we will be having a basketball game in the community. If you want to play, do the dunk contest or the 3-point shootout, or if you want to volunteer, please contact us and we'd be more than happy to have you. But we're excited about that. We'll have live music, cheerleaders, we'll have giveaways, concession stands, as well as an exciting game. Not only that, but we will still have lupus awareness and education for the community at large, because the purpose of it is to bring awareness to the community about lupus as well as invisible illnesses. That's on May 23rd. And we also have our 5K walk, which is not just lupus, but mental health awareness. And that will be June 22nd. That is also at Southeast High School. We're looking for volunteers for that. So if you want to pass out water, you just want to stand on the route and cheer and encourage people, inspire them, then we're looking for you as well. So feel free to go to our website, contact us, and the website again is www.mybeautifulbutterflies.com. We would love to have you. We'd love to have you at one of our monthly support groups or any of our events. And we look forward to you thriving with us.
Thank you so much, Keva. Thank you for your work. Thank you for trusting me with your story and for sharing your story on this platform.
Absolutely.
And we'll definitely be supporting you. The Scene Society would love to make sure we collaborate and continue to share your events and share what you are doing. And in this month, for anybody watching this, we just continue to offer prayers and support and love, and let people know who are dealing with lupus, who are caretakers of people with lupus, that we see you and that we stand with you for a cure and for your wellness. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to collaborating with you soon.
Yes.